Are you ready to dive into wood turning, but you're on a shoestring budget? Forget what you think you know. I'm showing you the only tools that you actually need, and I'll tell you where to get them for extremely cheap. I'll show you the exact setup I use to get started, what to buy, and how to keep it under $200. Let's start at the beginning. To start wood turning, you need a wood lathe. And just like just about anything that you're going to buy, you can buy anything from dirt cheap to stupidly expensive. Where you start depends mainly on what your interests are and what you're hoping to accomplish in wood turning. For me personally, I started wood turning on this. This is an Excelsior lathe. It was a Rockler brand. It didn't have all the bells and whistles. However, what it did have were the essentials, the things that we need to be able to turn wood into projects. So we'll go over the basic terms of a wood lathe and what you need to know. We're going to start with the headstock. The headstock is the part of the lathe that houses the spindle, the hand wheel. Typically, it'll house the motor and the belts and pulleys used to drive the spindle. The spindle, that's the piece of the lathe that is going to actually do the spinning of the wood. Next, we'll talk about the tool rest. Tool rest is extremely important. That is, as you could imagine, where the tool rests. So as you're making your cuts, you have to have a nice, firm tool rest. Next, we'll talk about the tailstock. The tailstock is going to be adjustable. It can move in and out to varying different lengths depending on the projects that you're working on. Inside the tailstock, we have the quill. The quill will turn in and out as well to make more fine-tuning adjustments, apply a little bit more pressure to the piece that you're working on. Down below, everything sits on the lathe bed or the bedways. These are typically going to be cast iron. Very important, whatever lathe you get, it's very important to keep your bedways clean and flat and free of debris. Very important that anything that moves on the bedways moves freely. And the last item we're going to talk about here today is the banjo. The banjo holds the tool rest, and it allows you to adjust the tool rest in and out and up and down to allow you to adjust to the proper height and to the proper place for your tool rest while you're cutting your projects. So let's discuss briefly different ways of mounting the wood to the spindle in order to be able to turn a piece. Starting off at the very basic, the beginner level, which would be centers, turning it between centers. What I have here is an example of a spur drive and a live center. Actually, I have another live center here as well. Spur drives, drive centers, and live centers all come in a wide variety of different options. These are just a couple of examples. We'll start with the spur drive. This spur drive has 4 spokes and a center point. The center point will lay into the center point that you mark on your piece. And as you drive the wood in with the tailstock, these 4 different spokes will drive into the wood, and that will allow the wood to spin on the lathe. On the other side, the live centers. These will all have some type of a bearing to allow them to spin freely. So these are there to provide support and to provide pressure into the headstock. The spur drive mounts into the headstock. The live center mounts into the tailstock. A couple other options for mounting wood onto a lathe. Another very popular and very common way to mount wood on a lathe is with a chuck. Now this is a 4-jaw chuck. It does have a set of, I believe these are 3-inch jaws. So these can grip a 3-inch diameter piece. And they simply work by opening up where you can fit a piece of wood inside. And then you tighten it down to hold onto that piece. This will mount on the headstock and it'll spin with the spindle, allowing your piece to spin. So this does not necessarily require a live center to hold it in because you're gripping it on the sides. So that will allow your piece to spin without a live center. This is important if you're planning on hollowing out items from the backside. If you have a live center there, you won't be able to get at it to hollow it out. So being able to grip it with a chuck makes it very easy to hollow out items. Couple other options. Here we have a faceplate. So this will mount onto your headstock as well. On the faceplate, you see there's holes here that will allow you to physically screw in your material into the headstock. So just like the chuck, that's going to allow you to access the other side of whatever you're working on to hollow it out or to flatten out that side where you don't need the live center support. Couple other options. You have, instead of using a faceplate, a lot of people are opting to use a woodworm screw. So the woodworm screw works a lot in the same way as a faceplate. However, you just have to have one hole in the center of whatever you're using. So this particular woodworm screw mounts inside of my chuck, like so. So basically all we have here is one hole in the center of our piece. You're going to drill a hole for the proper size of your woodworm screw on whatever product you're working on. You can then screw on that piece. The most important thing here to keep in mind is whatever we use on the outside here, that's what's going to be creating the force to hold it in place. So you don't want something very small. You want something roughly a little bit smaller than the diameter that you're going to be working. You can always use a plywood plate to put down over this to give you more surface area for it to screw onto, or you can use different chucks or different jaws of different sizes. That's another option. A kind of an innovative option that I don't see a whole lot of people using, but I tend to use it on if I'm making plates or platters, is what I call a spike plate. So basically all this is a face plate. I have just a regular face plate. I have it mounted onto a piece of wood. However, I let the screws come out about 2 millimeters past the piece of wood that I used. So this allows me to, instead of creating big holes in my workpiece, this allows little spikes to grab on to your piece. Now you do have to use a live center support to keep the pressure into the spike plate, but it is very effective for things that are thin that you don't want to put a big hole in. It gives you enough screw to get into your wood to allow it to spin, but not so much that you can't get rid of the holes when they're done. With that being said, I think it's time to start talking about some tools of the trade. So what I'm going to be talking about in today's video are going to be the tools that I think you need to get started in wood turning. To get started, I suggest you have one, maybe two good, decent quality gouges. So when I talk about gouges, there are two main types of gouges. One is going to be a spindle gouge and one is going to be a bowl gouge. You absolutely can use a spindle gouge for just about everything that a bowl gouge can be used for. The main difference between the two is simply the depth of the flute. On this side, we have a spindle gouge. On this side, we have a bowl gouge. You just notice the bottom of the flute here is relatively close to the top of the wing. And on this one, the bottom of the flute is significantly deeper than the top of the wing. Both of these tools can be used for just about everything that you're going to be doing on a wood lathe. Between these two, between a spindle gouge and a bowl gouge, I would venture a guess that I use these 90 to 95% of the time when I'm working on a lathe. So having a decent quality spindle or bowl gouge or one of each will be very important to you. When I started wood turning, I started off using a bowl gouge very similar to this and a spindle gouge very similar to this. So we'll start off by talking about these two, the prices, and where you can find them. Starting off with the spindle gouge. The spindle gouge that I have here is a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. It is used typically for more intricate details, getting into corners, more subtle work. This is a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. The 1/2 inch bowl gouge is typically used for more bulk removal, quicker removal of waste wood. You can certainly use it for intricate work. It's just a little bit more difficult to do so. This spindle gouge I purchased is a Benjamin's Best spindle gouge. I purchased this gouge on a website called PennStateIndustries.com. Penn State Industries has a wide array of wood turning tools from Benjamin's Best, and they are all very moderately priced. They are not the best quality tools in the world, but they're certainly not bad. They are very serviceable. So I would strongly suggest if you're on a budget, start off PennStateIndustries.com or anywhere where you can find Benjamin Best tools. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'll do some research and I'll put the price up here so you can see exactly what this spindle gouge cost me. This bowl gouge, Hurricane Turning Tools. Hurricane Turning Tools, I purchased this off of Amazon. It is a slight step up from the Benjamin's Best in both quality and price, but only slight. This tool here, I had one just like it. This is my second one. They have both of those have gotten me through quite a few wood turning projects. And to be honest with you, for the price point, I think they're great. Are there better tools out there? Absolutely, there all are. I'll show you a couple here in a moment. However, just getting started, definitely not a bad place to start. We'll put up the price of the Hurricane bowl gouge here as well. Couple other options. This is a 1/2-inch spindle gouge from Robert Sorby. Now, this is a higher quality tool. It is a more expensive tool. You can find these in a large amount of different places. I believe you can even find these on Amazon. We'll put up a price for the Robert Sorby spindle gouge 1/2-inch. Now, this here, I will tell you, this is my baby. This is my favorite tool that I have in the shop. This is ThompsonLatheTools.com. This is the best steel that I've ever had my hands on. This is a 5/8 of an inch bowl gouge, a little bit bigger, a little bit sturdier, can reach further over the tool rest to do some bigger items and some, heavier cutting, heavier duty cutting. These come with, at ThompsonLatheTools.com, you buy the tools and then you buy the handle separately. So I will put up the price point. This one is a U bowl gouge. They have U and V-shaped bowl gouges. This one is their U-shaped bowl gouge. I actually have, this is one of their V-shaped bowl gouges. So they're very similar. Once again, you purchase the steel and then you purchase the handle separately. They have different sizes of handles, so you can mix and match. With 2 quick set screws, you can take out the steel, put in a different one if you want to use. So for example, I have different size of handles. So if I wanted to switch the tools out to get a smaller handle on one project, I can, with 2 quick set screws, I can make that change very quickly. Both of these are 5/8 inches. I use these tools all the time. Once again, these are going to be higher quality. These are the highest quality tools I have. They do come at a higher price point. If you want to make your own handles, that will help you save some money and just purchase the steel. The steel is where the extreme quality comes into play. Thompson Wood Tools, if you have the cash, I would recommend them. Great, great, great tools. Okay, that covers our bowl gouges. Let's set those to the side. Next, we're going to talk about scrapers. And I have 3 different scrapers to show you here today. All 3 of them actually come from Benjamin Best. These are very cheap, and to be quite frank, they do me just fine. I use these on a daily basis, and they do great work. So I have 3 different types. I have the square end scraper. This is a square end scraper. It started off life as a bowl scraper. However, I wanted to use it as a refiner scraper. So this one's got a slightly radius curve on the top, and it's wider than my square end scraper is. So I use this one to hollow out boxes, maybe some bulk material out of bowls. This one I use to refine the shape, either inside or outside of projects. And then this is my bowl or box scraper. So this has a French curve inbound shape. So this allows me to scrape the edges of some curves on the inside of bowls where it gets down into the bottom of the bowl. It allows you to scrape out the inside of the bowls. What I use a scraper for, the majority, is just to get a more refined surface that's ready for sanding after creating whatever shaped item I'm trying to create. If you use them properly with a shear scrape, or sometimes a regular scrape can do it, they leave a very, very fine surface, helps you get rid of any tear out, and helps you prepare the surface for sanding and finishing. That's what I use these 2 for the majority of the time. My 2 red handle Benjamin Best tools are for finishing a project. The square end, you can use that for creating recesses, hollowing out boxes, hollowing out bowls. It does a very good job at removing a lot of material very quickly. And also you can use it for flattening the bottom of work pieces. A lot of different things that you can use a scraper for. Scrapers are very, very useful. I would say if I use a bowl gouge for 90% of my work, then 9% of the rest of it comes off of scrapers. You can just about do everything you want to do with a good quality bowl gouge and a good quality scraper. That's really all you really need to get started. Once again, from Penn State Industries, we'll put up where you can buy those and about how much a set of scrapers would cost you on that website. I would suggest if you're going to have one, then I would get a little bit bigger of a bowl scraper with a more easy curve, a bigger tool with not such a sharp curve. That's what I would go with if you're only going to buy one. If you're going to buy two, I would strongly suggest you go with a square end scraper that you can turn into some type of refiner very easily. Just put a slight radius on the top, and then you have a bowl scraper to go with it. And last but not least, the only other tool that I suggest that you have on hand as a beginning wood turner is a parting tool. So the parting tool, it does just that. It allows you to part wood from itself. So basically this is going to have, you have one piece of wood and you want to make it two, use the parting tool, you slice it in half, you're on to the next project or on to the next step in the project. This is a Penn State Industries Benjamin Best parting tool. Kept it nice and cheap. This tool, it's good to have. You're going to use it on occasion. Odds are it's not going to be used frequently. So I strongly suggest that even if you have the extra money to go crazy, I still strongly suggest going Benjamin Best on this because it's not something that you're going to use and abuse for a long period of time. Typically, you make one cut, you put it away, you're done. And there's the information, hopefully to get you started wood turning on a shoestring budget. If you have a little extra money to spend, I've shown you some other great options here as well. If this breakdown helped make things click for you and give you a little bit more confidence to start making some shavings, do me a huge favor, click that like button. It helps push this content out to others like you looking to get started in wood turning. And if you want to follow along, the next episode that I make in a couple weeks is going to be taking these tools out to the lathe, actually spinning a piece of wood and making a project. So be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that bell notification, be on the lookout for that next video, and we're going to start making some cool stuff together. Well, thanks for swinging by and spending some time with me in the house today. The way I see it, we've only just begun.
It ain't over yet, McGavin. The way I see it, we've only just begun.